Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on the IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman, and we have a terrific show planned for you today. Please don't forget to stay tuned to IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station after the Drive at 5 with Warriors Talk with Rochelle at 6 p.m. Tonight, my guest via Zoom is an author of her new book entitled 7 Minutes. It is based on a true story of her dying for 7 minutes and coming back to life. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome to Teresa Flats. Welcome to the Drive.
Welcome, and hello, everybody.
Well, please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station your background.
Actually, it's funny because I didn't start out as an author. I only started writing after I had this, incident happen with me. So I worked in fashions. I worked in the school system, and in December of 2017, when I had my pulmonary embolism and went to cardiac arrest, I decided when I came home from the hospital in order for me to heal and to move forward is to write my story. So I decided to write this book. And it's, it is raw. It talks about living, talks about dying, talks about disappointment, growing up in a dysfunctional family. Because I had to go all the way back to, when I was a child to find out how did I get to this point in my life that I didn't know what was going on. So I decided to write the book.
What was the motivation in writing 7 minutes?
Dying and waking up and realizing that it was so traumatic. I couldn't go to sleep for weeks once I got home from the hospital because I was afraid of taking my last breath. In order for me to get past it, I had to, to go to counseling because you just don't die. And people tell, the doctors told me that after 7 minutes, you don't come back. And that the survival rate for that is 0%. You don't come back. So to hear that was enough to scare the heck out of me. That I had to write this story and tell my story. Maybe, someone else, I could help them to get through this, challenging, tough time. Because it was really tough. And I still go through. It's been almost 4 years now.
Wow, 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was it difficult to put your personal details about your life in a book?
Yes, because actually, when you read my book, I tell all my secrets, and and it was hard because I had to learn how to. When I came home from the hospital, I was sent home with a walker. I had to learn how to use my keyboard again, and I couldn't remember things. I had to write things down, so it was terrifying just going through the whole ordeal. And I said, I've got to write this down. I've got to move on, leave this legacy for my children, and to let people know who I am. And even though I had this happen to me, because I did have some damage done to the brain because of lack of oxygen. So they call it mild traumatic brain injury. And so I said, let me write this story so I don't forget it. And that's why I started writing
it. How did it make you feel replaying your death experience over and over again in a book?
At first, I cried. I cried every day for a year reliving it. And as I continued to relive it, it got better for me to handle it because for a while I just couldn't even talk about it. When I read my report, from the hospital, I just went to pieces and, because they told my family, well, she's not coming back. We can't wake her up. She's in a coma. She's not coming back. And that scared me more than anything else. And that my children, they weren't going to have their mom, so that basically was, the whole reason why, like I said, again, why I wrote the book. It was scary, but over time, it gets a little bit easier to talk about.
So it's kind of like, can you give us a play-by-play of what happened that fateful day that you were declared dead? We can't hear you now. Hello? Your audio just went out.
I'm on.
Okay, we got it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So on December 8th, I went to the hospital. I had routine surgery, and that was on Friday. On Monday, I kept complaining I wasn't ringing the nurse, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I don't remember anything after that until I woke up a week later. But what happened was that I had a pulmonary embolism, and it's a blood clot, and it went up to my lungs. I passed out in the hospital room. The nurse came in and they rushed me to have surgery. They contacted my daughter, said, "Mom, you got to do surgery now." But before I was getting ready to start the surgery, I went into cardiac arrest and my heart just stopped. And they worked on me for 7 minutes. They got me, revived my heart, but I stayed in a coma for exactly a week. And when I woke up a week later, I was informed that, they asked me, well, what happened? Do you know where you are? And I said, yes, I think I'm in the hospital. They asked me what day it was. I said, I couldn't tell you. They said, what year? I said, 2017. He said, you know what year it is? I said, yes. He said, do you know who the president is? I said, Obama. He says, well, I think she's going to make it. So at that point, I was still fuzzy. I couldn't remember things. I got things turned around. But I remember my daughter whispering in my ear that my other daughter was coming to visit me. And a few weeks later, when I, went home, I said, did you say something to me? She said, yes. I said, well, I was dreaming it, but she was actually talking to me when I was in my coma and I heard her. But I didn't know I was dreaming it, but she was actually talking to me when I was in my coma and I heard her. But I didn't know what was going on. I just thought I was just having a conversation with her. So a few weeks later, after I spoke to her, I realized at that point she was talking to me and I overheard her.
Now, you said you had a brain aneurysm, right?
No, a pulmonary embolism, meaning that a
Okay.
blood clot, it was in my lungs and it caused me to go into cardiac arrest.
Okay. Now, what happened on the other side? Your family's reaction to what happened when they found out that you were almost declared dead for 7 minutes.
Well, my daughter got the phone call. She was picking up my granddaughter from school, and she said that they said your mom went to cardiac arrest, and she said she almost crashed the car because she said, wait a minute, you know, you just called me, said you're going to take up the surgery, and my family, they fell apart. They literally fell apart because I had moved to Charlotte, North Carolina from Virginia, which is a 4-hour difference, traveling. So they had to actually come to Charlotte to see me. And it was hard on my family because they kept telling them she's not going to make it and start making preparations. So my kids, they took it hard. They really took it hard. And I felt guilty even after once I woke up, is that I didn't want to put my family through all this because it was so unexpected. And it was just so terrifying to everybody because no one knew whether or not I was going to survive or make it, past those few days. But God had a different plan, and I had a praying family. So that's why I'm here.
Take us through the process of rehabilitation, um, and the psychology of saying, "Man, I I was here a minute ago. Then all of a sudden, this happened," and the psychological effects in the rehab.
Well, at first, when I was first told that, it didn't make any sense to me. Nothing, everything was just jumbled up because once that brain shuts down, it's like you have to reboot it again. And I couldn't even walk. I had to be sent home with a walker. I couldn't remember things. I couldn't hold a spoon in my hand, in my right hand. They thought maybe I'd had a stroke along with it. They wasn't sure, but just going through the process. So when I was sent home, my daughter actually came to Charlotte and stayed with me for a month. But in the meantime, I was taking care of my mother who had dementia. So she was at the house along with my son, who he had end-stage renal disease. So he was at the house. So all this is going on at the same time. My problem was I was trying to be superwoman and take care of everybody and not take care of myself. But coming home, it was rough because I had to figure out who I was because I wasn't the same person I was when I went into the hospital. I couldn't remember things, and I was like a wreck. I was scared to be by myself. So I actually had to have I had to go to have a psychological evaluation, and that's when they told me that that there was some damage done due to the lack of oxygen to the brain, and that upset me more than anything else because they said, well, you won't be able to work, you won't be able to stay in the house by yourself, you won't be able to cook because you won't remember to turn off the stove, which I do from time to time. So I have to put a timer on for everything I do. I have to write down everything I do. I keep a calendar because I will forget, and that's just part of life. I even try to return back to school, working in the school system. And I remember the first day I got to school, I walked into the building. I didn't know which way to go. So I followed, somebody. And every day that I came into the building, I couldn't find my classroom because I couldn't remember which direction. My brain said, when you walk in the building, go straight. And every day I went straight, and every day I was going in the opposite direction. So I had to actually look at landmarks, look at things on the wall to figure out, okay, when you get to this point, to make a right. Otherwise, I was lost. And I would have to follow the kids to the lunchroom. And I didn't tell anybody about what had happened to me because I was afraid that they wouldn't have hired me and I needed to go back to work because money wasn't coming in. And that was a scary experience, of having every day, and even trying to drive. So that was rough,
So,
definitely.
so tell us the moment when you found out, you know what, I'm going to be okay. I'm at peace with what happened in the past. I'm okay now, even though you're not fully okay, but you're okay. And now you're at a point that you wrote a book, you're back to work. How you defeat the odds?
Well, to say I'm okay, it took me to now. And that's been almost 4 years to say I'm okay. I stopped working because it was a little bit too much. And my doctor said, no, you need to just do something else. It was, because I was working with kids, with special needs, autistic children. So it took a lot of work, which I had done in the past. So I decided, well, maybe I'll find some other things to do. So I started writing. I started actually, started creating things like making flyers and doing videos. So I started doing that. I was teaching myself because I said I had to learn something new to do other than just sit at home and do nothing. So I created my own little side gig, if you want to say, and I started doing, like I said, videos, promo videos, and flyers. So that kind of gave me the boost that I was able to move forward. Because at that point, I was like, I was just stuck in this mindset that once you get the report from the doctor and they say you can't do this, and that, and I'm saying, is this me? I'm not gonna be able to drive. I'm not gonna be able to stay in the house. I can't handle my business. So it took up until now for me to get through it. And I still go to counseling because you don't get over something like that. And the brain doesn't really heal. You just have to learn how to live a new norm. And this is my new norm, trying to remember things. Even now, I don't travel too far. If I go to the stores 5 minutes from the house, I make sure I park my car in a certain place every time in the same spot, because if I don't know where the car is, and I'll be looking around the parking lot. And that's a horrible feeling coming out the store and you're like, which way do I go? Where's my car? Did somebody take it? So those are things that are ongoing that I have to learn how to live with at this point now, as far as, navigating and living this new norm.
That is also the part of your book
Mm-hmm.
describing the negative and then living the new normal. Can you tell us what are some of the positive things you get out of your experience?
Well, I realized that, things happen for a reason. First, I said, I couldn't understand, not to say why me. I was like, why did God save me? Because everybody else around me had died. I lost my cousin. He was in his early 50s with brain cancer and all of this. And I'm like, I felt guilty because I was alive, which didn't make any sense. And I told my daughter, she's a minister, and she said, well, why not? And finally it sunk in that God is not finished with me and that he had a plan. And I said, and that's what woke me up. I realized at that point, so that's why I started writing my story. But I couldn't start the story a month before it happened, a year. I had to go back from the time I was a child to figure out how did I get to this place in my life. So I talked about, the different things that happened in my life, growing up, in a dysfunctional household, how things were. My mother and I didn't have a good relationship, but in the end, I ended up having to take care of her because she had dementia. So it's a story that it will touch everybody because it's raw. I talk, I speak the way at the time, whatever was on my mind as a young teenager, I just came out and said it, and there were times when I was like, why am I here? Even growing up as a child, why am I here? Why I'm in this situation? And how did I get to this point that I was sick and did not know it? So that's why I continue, I wrote the book. So the biggest thing that I got from, writing this book was forgiveness, because I had to learn how to forgive my parents, how to forgive myself, because I felt guilty for not paying attention to, there were cues about there's something wrong, but I was so busy trying to take a caretaker that I put my needs and my wants at the back burner, and it almost took me out of it.
So, and that's probably the biggest thing. There are many people that are like you,
Mm-hmm.
Teresa, that put their needs in front of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hindsight 2020, what would you do differently if you had to go back and do it again? What would you do differently that you could have said, you know what, I need to take care of me, and and
Well,
not in a selfish way, but
no.
but also like I'm taking care of everybody else. What is the stopping point there?
Well, I think for everybody, even for me, it's important that you sit down and realize that you need help. And I took on this and I got no help. And, I had siblings and they lived in another state, but I got no help and I needed help. And instead of me getting the help that I needed, I said, oh, well, since nobody wants to help me, I'll do it myself. And that was the wrong attitude that I had. And had I had gotten the help in the early stages, then I wouldn't have gotten to the point where I was, because I said, well, nobody's there to help me. I'll just do it myself. I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself. And in the meantime, everything was falling in my lap. Like I said, I had a son who had end stage renal disease and he was on dialysis. So I was taking care of him. He's an adult, but that enough was, him going back and forth to the hospital. And my mom had dementia. I brought it here with me to stay with me temporarily. So you have to have help. You cannot do this by yourself. And if I had to do it over again, definitely I needed a support system, which I didn't have, and I needed to get out. I had relocated and I was here by myself. I didn't know anybody in Charlotte except for one person. And it's important that you take the time for you, and don't feel guilty about it. Because I felt guilty. Well, I got to take care of her. She's my mom, even though things were, strained, relationship was strained, she was still my mother and I had to take care of her. But again, it's important that you have support system and seek it. Do some research. I didn't do it. I just tried to take on everything on myself. And it cost me. And even though I was feeling bad, I continued, kept moving. Well, I guess I feel bad. I give take time long, keep moving.
So there was warning signs, but you
Yeah, I
ignored the
started
one.
getting warning signs. When I realized that there was something wrong, it almost cost me my life. When I realized I went to the doctor and they said, well, okay, we're gonna have to do surgery, but we didn't know that this was gonna happen. It was almost like a freak accident that I actually will have a blood clot and then put me in cardiac arrest. Like I said, they said after 4 minutes of not getting oxygen to the brain cells begin to die. After 6 minutes, death becomes imminent. And 7 minutes, and even now when I see my doctors, this is the miracle patient because again, you don't survive it. Once you flatline for that amount of time, you don't survive it. If you do, you're brain damaged. And they told my kids that if I did come out, but I wouldn't know who they were, and I would be, almost like a vegetable. But God had a different plan. That's all I have to say.
So
I still
go ahead. I'm sorry.
to this day, I keep saying to myself, you know, with everything that happened, that God had a better plan for me. So writing this story and now starting to get involved, with other people and explaining and talking to them about whatever challenges that you run up against, that to keep moving forward, and not to let that thing just stop you, because it stopped me dead in my tracks. I didn't know whether to move forward or backwards. I was just stuck and terrified.
What lesson or lessons you want the readers to get out of reading your book?
Well, again, I want them to forgiveness. Don't forget to forgive yourself. I want people to understand that we make decisions, make choices, we do things, and we want to be able to understand that, all right, there's always a consequence, but don't take that and for the rest of your life carry it on. Forgive yourself. I had to forgive myself, but maybe if I was a better daughter growing up, maybe my relationship with my mom and my father would have been better. So those are things I found, that it's forgiveness, learning to understand that we all go through challenges, no matter what it is. You take whatever you learn and move forward. Don't let your past keep you tied up and not being able to move in any directions, because sometimes we allow fear to take over and we get stuck. And that was part of the book. Like I said, the book is raw and it talks about all kinds of different things in my life that affected me growing up. And maybe that's the reason why I made the decisions that I made, because I couldn't depend on the things from my parents. So I figured, well, if they can't give it to me, I'm gonna do it myself. And so I took on all of this responsibility, and I had to be responsible. Here I was 10 years old, and my mom and dad had to go to work. And my youngest brother was 10 years younger than me, and I'm changing diapers at 10, and they didn't have Pampers back then. So I was making formula and bottles and stuff. And so when I got married at 18, I already knew that part, but I never got a chance to grow up because I was so busy taking care of my siblings, because I had 3 brothers and 1 sister. And here, from the time I was 10 to 17, I'm the daycare provider. So I never got a chance to grow up and do the things that the average teenager would do, because I was too busy playing the role of being a mom.
Now, do you have the support system that you want or need?
I'm getting it a lot now through friends, through talking about what's going on, through church. Those are things that I have put aside. The things that I used to, sing in a choir. And after I had the pulmonary embolism, I lost my voice, but I didn't lose the ability to sing. So I went back to singing in the choir. And even though I couldn't remember the words, once I started singing, and because I had sung before in the past, it came back to me. And I remember the choir director said, I don't have to teach you anything, because you know it. I said, well, I guess it's inside me, but if you teach me a new song, it's hard for me to remember the words. But because I sang in the choir for so long, I can pick up what's the next, note going to be. And it just came naturally. So that I enjoyed. But when the pandemic hit, everything shut down. So I found myself like, okay, I'm back home again. What can I do? And so that's when I started working on doing things like doing videos and creating my own flyers, to try to get me something else to do other than just sitting there and feeling sorry for myself.
If somebody is going through a tough time, or with sickness, or just going through a rough patch in their life, what advice would you give them?
Never, ever give up. I don't care what kind of diagnosis that you have, never give up. You got to get that strength to say, okay, no matter what you're dealt with, is to move forward and talk about it. Don't be afraid, because, I was afraid to talk about what happened to me, because I thought people were going to pity me because of the things that had happened, and I couldn't remember things. and things would turn around or have a conversation. All of a sudden, my mind would just go blank, and I couldn't remember what I was talking about. And people looking at me, and I'm like, okay. But I had to get past that, and whatever it is, just get past it. Like I said, I won't let anybody's opinion or misconceptions define who I am. I am me. I'm still Teresa, even though I'm not the same person I was before the incident. I'm still Teresa. I'm a different Teresa, but I have to keep moving forward. And that's the only thing that's keeping me going, because if I stayed in that same spot, I felt like I was going to die mentally. So just keep moving forward. Find something that you enjoy doing. I don't care what time you have. Find something you enjoy doing, and put yourself, spend that time doing that, whether it's spending time with your children, finding a new hobby, a new skill, whatever. But find something you enjoy. And that will that's what kept me moving. That I found something. And my thing was singing in a choir. And even then when that ended, I found that, okay, I just found a new skill. I just learned. I taught myself how to design flyers. How could I do that when I can't remember the keyboards? Something was still there. So, that part of it, I feel good that I made some accomplishments.
So please give intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station where they can get the book and in contact with you.
Okay, well, actually, you can go to my website. It's www.7minutesmyjourney.com. And it's the number 7, not written out 7. It's 7minutesmyjourney.com. You can go to the website. You can actually you can read the first chapter of my book. I actually have one free chapter of the book. You can purchase the book there. It's available on Amazon. I'm also on Facebook. 7 minutes, also Teresa Flash. You can reach me through there, or Instagram. I'm not on as much, but Teresa Flash, Instagram, Teresa Flash, Facebook, or 7 minutes.
All right. Don't be a stranger to the Drive 5. Nice to have you on.
Yes. Well, thank you for interviewing me.
No problem. Anytime. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And tell people to buy the book.
All right. Have a good one.
Care.
All right. You too. When we come back on the Drive at 5 on the intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station, we'll have comic book author Corey Bird next on the Drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com.